David, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here, Kara. Nice to meet you.
So, yeah, it's good to meet you. I'm really excited. And I actually told my friends that I feel like I might fangirl a little bit because I am a fan of yours. And I just really love all the comics and the things that you put out. And so, as I got to know more about you, right, you called the Naked Pastor. And so, you're a pastor turned artist. So, I want to know, how did you get there?
Yeah. Well, pastor turned artist. I've always been an artist.
Right. I was going to say, I'm like,
Uh,
this kind of always lives
and
within you.
yeah. And I don't ever remember not painting or drawing or whatever. And then I went into the ministry. And, to be honest with you, I feel now that I left the ministry in 2010.
Mm,
I served the church for about 30 years as a pastor. I left the ministry in 2010, and I kind of feel like I'm getting back to who I really am.
mm.
So uh, maybe it should be pastor returned to artist.
To artist, yeah.
Artist. Um, when I went into the ministry, even though I was doing some art and music and things like that, my full-time gig was really being a pastor. And I used to say I was an artist trapped in a pastor's body, and now maybe I'm a pastor trapped in an artist's body. I don't know,
Hmm.
because some people say that I'm still doing the work of a pastor just online.
Yeah.
And so I'm okay with that if that's what's happening. And it seems to be that's what's happening. I'm hearing back from a lot of people who are really grateful, like you are, for my work and my cartoons and my whatever I'm writing. It's helping them in their spiritual journey, which I think is the role of a pastor. And so,
Hmm.
uh, yeah, I like I said, I left the ministry in 2010. I struggled trying to figure out what to do, and then I just decided I've been blogging Naked Pastor since 2005. I thought, well, let's see if I can make this a full time gig, and I put everything into it, and lo and behold, that's what I'm doing full time now. So that's how it happened.
What was your initial call into ministry?
Well, you know what? I always struggled with that. I have friends who just knew they were called to the ministry and everything, and I never ever felt confident I was doing the right
Mm,
thing.
mm,
Even on the night before I was going to be ordained, I was with my friends who were being ordained with me, and the guy who was preaching our ordination, who's a friend of ours, and it was in the Presbyterian Church in Canada. And I'm like, oh, I was really, really struggling. Am I doing the right thing? And they're like, oh, just shut up and do it. So I did. I just shut up and did it. And um, you know, I struggled with it the whole time.
mhm,
I don't like feeling like I don't like being controlled or told what to do or having to fit into a box or anything. Like freedom is my number one, thing. And there was a lot of times in the ministry I didn't feel that. So
mhm.
a lot of people in the ministry, oh, you're just kicking against the pricks and all this kind of stuff, and just you need to settle in and all that. So uh, I don't know. I just eventually I struggled all the way through. I feel like I was a good pastor. I studied, I researched, I was searching. I did my best as I could, preaching and leading and all that kind of thing, until in 2009 or so, I started feeling like the box was getting too small,
Mhm.
and that the only way I could continue on my journey was by sort of having an amicable divorce with the church.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, that particular one. And as it happened, uh, when I left the ministry, even though I didn't intend this to happen, it did happen that it was I sort of left the church at the same time just because of the situation.
Mm.
And so, yeah.
I feel you because I went to seminary And I was also that person who was like, I'll never go to seminary. And then I had people say, you're going to go to seminary. And then I went and I was like, dang it. I was like mad about it.
Yeah, well, I went to seminary because I went to Gordon Conwell. I took
Oh, yeah.
Gordon Conwell Theological Seminary near Boston, and
Mm-hmm.
I was taking the scholarly route. Like, so I took years of Greek, years of Hebrew, Aramaic. I was studying under Dr. Gordon Fee, New Testament textual critic, world famous. And, I wanted to be a New Testament Bible scholar.
Mm.
And so I went to Toronto, the University of Toronto, started my PhD in New Testament studies. And,
Wow.
that was my intention.
Sure.
Um, and I felt good about that. But then we got pregnant and we sort of had to take a detour, which ended up being the main road.
Right.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Do you feel that sometimes within church culture, because of things like getting pregnant or wanting to get married or wanting to live together, that kind of predetermines to the route
Oh,
that you need to take?
oh no, we were married.
Mm-hmm.
We were
Okay.
Lisa and I were married, and oh no, we followed all the rules. We were really good
Yeah.
kids. I mean, we met in a Pentecostal Bible college,
Oh,
and
okay.
down in Springfield, Missouri, which is Pentecostal Central.
Mm-hmm.
And we fell in love and got married 2 days after I graduated
Mm.
down in Alabama, and that's where she's from. And we just fell madly in love, and we were on this. We went to Gordon Conwell, and then to the University of Toronto, and then we'd been trying to get pregnant for 7 years and couldn't. We were
Wow.
going through all kinds of tests and procedures and everything, and then something happened
That's
and
great.
got pregnant, and we were suddenly forced to make a decision, and that didn't include continuing in my PhD.
Oh,
So
mm-hmm.
I was offered a route that I could be in full-time ministry within a year, and that's the route I took. Ended up at McGill University, and then we went into the ministry, and that's when I started serving as a full-time pastor for all those years after that.
Wow.
But no, I just did a cartoon the other day where I sort of do these Google Translate where
Yes.
it
I've been
translates
seeing those lately. I would like
from
them.
Christianese to English.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so the Christianese, one of them I just did last week, it was madly popular, was the Christianese says, we didn't have sex until we were married.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
then the English translation of that is, we did everything else but intercourse.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly. Which
yeah.
is a lot of what happens, right? As we
Oh,
know.
man. Yeah. 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 We were at Pentecostal Bible College where they still had the 6-inch rule where you had to stay 6 inches away from a woman and
So the
no no public display of affection, PDA,
really.
no
Mm,
public display of affection. And I had tons of friends, well, not tons, but I had a lot of friends got kicked out for confessing that they masturbated or that they confessed that they were parking and, heavy petting or whatever. And they were kicked out of school and all that kind of stuff. So it was,
oh my
it was an
gosh.
interesting ride.
I would think so. That's like
Mhm.
leave room for the Holy Spirit kind of thing, right? With
What?
like the space with the
Oh,
where they put leave room for the Holy Spirit.
yeah.
I always, as someone who studies uh religion and things,
Mhm.
and now being a sex educator, I'm like, man, what is that teaching people about intimacy, right?
Mhm.
Of like these rules of you can't get close, you can't get close to people, you can't connect.
Yeah.
Whereas like this is the opposite, I feel, of what Jesus wanted in terms of like connecting and being
Yeah.
forming relationship and being intimate, you
It's
know?
interesting. I have a lot of friends and acquaintances who've come out of what they call the purity culture, which
Right.
they were taught and raised that there should be no physical displays of affection or no connecting, no touching, no kissing even. I know people who never kissed until they were married
Wow.
and or held hands, and I don't know, Lisa and I Lisa's my wife, by the way. We seem to not be hung up about that.
Mm.
And we found ways of enjoying ourselves. And I mean, I'm glad we weren't caught, but we've always had a pretty alive, um, passionate relationship,
Mm-hmm.
and we weren't hung up about all those
Although.
things,
Mm-hmm.
that now she wasn't raised in a Christian home, and um, I, for some reason, didn't absorb that kind of teaching. Um, but yeah, but I know a lot of people who suffer and struggle from that for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It's really hard. So, what feels like the naked truth to you as you call yourself the naked pastor, searching for the naked truth?
Yeah, a lot of people say, "Oh, naked pastor, that's gross. Why do you call yourself that?" And I'm like, "Come on now, use your imagination. What do you think it means?" Um, and they'll say, "You're just being honest and straightforward." And yeah, there you go. It wasn't
Mm-hmm.
hard, you
Yeah.
know.
There you go.
But
You came to it.
I do recommend, if you Google naked pastor, it's one word.
Mm.
If you Google two words, you're going to see things you can't unsee. I've
Okay.
tried it, and
Mm.
yeah, naked pastor is one
Not,
word.
yeah.
And I started using that word back when the naked chef and the naked archaeologist and the naked truth and all that was popular.
Mm-hmm.
They've since all changed their names, but I didn't. Naked Pastor sort of became a brand, and it's, everybody, well, not everybody, but a lot of people have heard about Naked Pastor. So,
Mm-hmm.
but I started blogging when I was in the ministry as a pastor, and there were a lot of pastors blogging, and I thought, I want to be different. I want my blog to be really totally honest. I'm going to speak the truth about what it's like to be in the ministry.
Mm.
I'm not going to just talk about the wonderful worship music and the great offerings and the crowds and the baptisms and the, wonderful fellowship and potlucks and donuts and coffee, all that stuff. I wanted to talk about the conflict, my own personal fears and doubts and struggles, losing members, the fights, the
Mm.
struggling with meeting the bills as a church, all that stuff. So I wanted to sort of throw back the curtain, let people see. So that's why I called it the Naked Pastor. And it was just sort of me being vulnerable and open and honest. And then when I left the ministry, I struggled with whether or not I should keep the name. But then people convinced me to, because I still kind of am a virtual pastoral presence, I suppose. And I'm still as honest as I can be. So I decided to stick with the Naked Pastor.
How did
So the naked truth for me is being authentic, being my true authentic self. And that's what
Right.
I try to encourage others to do.
How did people respond to your blog where you were able to talk more about the unpleasant things that can happen in church culture and things?
Well, naked pastors never enjoyed a lot of warm, fuzzy popularity. It's always been
Mm.
controversial.
Mm.
So, even starting with the name Naked Pastor, and then me sort of revealing company secrets,
Right.
kind of being a whistleblower on the ministry and on the church, because I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't inside.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people were like, "I can't believe you're criticizing the church, the very hand that feeds you." And then
Right.
when I did leave the church and continued critiquing the church, they're like, "I can't believe you're critiquing the church when you don't have anything to do with it. Like, mind your own business." So there was no
Mm.
win. There's no winning, right?
Sure. Exactly.
I just believe in people should be allowed to pursue their own authentic personal selves, and that the church should be one of the safest places for that to happen. Unfortunately,
I
it's not.
agree.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm. I
yeah.
agree. That's one of the things too, where I talk about, I think churches have to start learning how to talk about sexuality or
Mm.
acknowledging it without always damning everyone around it. Because, in my opinion, we're sexual and spiritual creatures. And
Right,
going into a church space constantly feeling like anything I'm doing is bad or
right.
not okay, we are losing the ability to have, I think, true intimacy and connection with the creator, because we're constantly sitting there like,
Yeah,
I'm not worthy of such, or I am not okay. And
right.
I don't think we minister to the full person, right? When we're not engaging all of that.
Hmm. Yeah, the church's ability to provide safe space for people to be their authentic self takes a lot of courage.
Hmm.
It's like with your children. If you have children, when you say you can be totally honest with me, I'm not going to judge you. I'm going to be your safe person,
Mm-hmm.
and you need to know that I'm here for you no matter what you have to tell me.
Mm-hmm.
And Lisa and I made that decision early with our kids that we prefer to maintain a relationship and not be right all the time.
Right.
So, and as a result, our kids are now all in their 30s, and we have a great relationship with them, and it's wonderful. So we did the right thing, and I think if churches did, but that's scary, right?
It
Because you're
is.
going to hear
Right.
things you don't want to hear. There's going to be TMI all the time, too much
Mm.
information all the time,
Mm-hmm.
and they're going to have a value system that's different than yours. You know, it's kind of like when have you heard of Esther Pearl?
Oh, yeah.
So when she came on the scene, she
Mm-hmm.
was saying some pretty radical things about sexuality,
Mm-hmm.
um, serial monogamy, and things like that. And that's pretty radical stuff, even outside of the church in the secular world. It was pretty. She was really, really super honest.
Right. Right.
And sometimes it's like uncomfortable watching her, listening to her, reading her books.
Mm-hmm.
Like for example, Mating in Captivity or whatever.
Which is a
There's
great
some
book.
controversial things in there, but
Mm-hmm.
I feel that the church could grapple with those issues
Mm-hmm.
and be that safe space where we could talk about sexuality honestly.
Right.
I think we'd see less people running away from the church.
I agree. I kind of
Mm,
feel like that's I think one of the main reasons why people continues to leave, because I don't think it's meeting people's needs, right? Like,
that's right.
we want to go to a place where we can, like, say, when people say, "How are you doing?" You don't have to say, "I'm doing fine."
Right.
You
Yeah.
know, like, you can be like, "Oh, I feel kind of lousy and I just need to be I just need to sit
Yeah.
here," or "I'm feeling really great," or "I need support," or X, Y, and Z, you know?
So, yeah, but it's understood, right, that when somebody asks that question, it's not superficial. They mean it. How are
Hmm.
you? And I
Exactly.
have the time to listen to a long, painful response.
Right.
Right.
I'm
So,
here for whatever you give me, kind of thing.
yeah. So, how are you feeling? And then we can get down and really, really talk about it. I've tried to provide such communities. I've tried it in churches, and to a certain extent, it works. It's chaotic, but it's really rich. And
Hmm.
I try to provide the same thing online. I have an online community called The Lasting Supper where I try to provide a safe place for people to vent and be themselves and be authentic and question and whatever. And we're not going to jump in with advice or an answer or a solution or a correction or a rebuke.
Hmm.
And I really do believe those kind of spaces can be formed
Hmm.
because they're out there.
Yeah.
And I've experienced them and experienced them now.
Hmm.
And but it like we've been saying, it's very, very scary,
Hmm.
which is why a lot of people don't try it, I think.
Well, I think it's admitting, vulnerability. You have to be vulnerable to do that. And then it's also admitting that we don't have all the answers.
Hmm.
which is, and we're gonna, and it's so, it's like a, an experiment. Like we're gonna get our hands dirty. We're gonna, you
Yeah,
know.
that's exactly what I called it. This is an experiment
Hmm.
because we don't have the answer. We're forging new territory. We're blazing a new trail here, a new path to somewhere we've never been. So we don't have a map. We're making this up as we go along. And
Hmm.
you know what? A lot of people don't like that. They want a plan, they want a vision, they want a goal, and a mission and all that. And I think all that kills community personally, myself. And if we can treat it like an experiment where we have to be on our toes and negotiate every step of the way every day,
Hmm.
it makes for a powerful, dynamic community. I've seen it.
So I really want you to speak more to what you just said of, if there's goals and different things, that's what kind of kills a community. Can you speak more about that? Because that's fascinating.
Well, I talk about that quite a bit. I actually wrote a book about it,
Oh.
called "Without a Vision, My People Prosper."
Hmm.
So
That's
it's
cool.
the verse in the Bible is "Without a vision, my people perish," right? So the root of that actually isn't vision. It's without a prophetic word, meaning without some kind of um, um, without some kind of voice or word from the Lord, then what you perish. It's not a vision. A lot of churches though use that. We need a vision. We need a
Mm.
vision statement. Otherwise, we're going to perish. Well, I disagree totally 100%. I'm a complete opposite. So I wrote a book called "Without a Vision, My People Prosper." And it's very, very controversial stance. But the same people appreciate Bonhoeffer's book on um, community,
Hmm.
in which he declares visionary thinking kills the church.
Mm.
And people quote it all the time, but they don't realize the seriousness of what's being said. So when you um, I'll try to unwrap it a little bit. When you propose a vision and a mission and a goal for a congregation, then everybody has to step in line to
Mm.
meet that vision and goal. You have to compromise something. You have to give up stuff. You cannot be your authentic self because now you're a part of a rowing team on this galley ship, and you
Hmm.
have to be in tune with everybody else and forget your own needs and desires,
Hmm.
uh, and yourself. We're all pitching in, we're sacrificing our egos and our selfish selves to participate together to get this ship we call the church to a better place.
Mm.
And that's exactly what happens when visionary thinking happens in a church. And so I decided as a pastor to not have a vision statement, not have a mission or goal. Let's just get together and we provide a safe space for people to be free. We figure out how to be free together. How can I be free without violating Kara's freedom? How can
Mm.
Kara be free without violating my freedom? Let's figure this out. And I'm telling you, stuff gets done.
That's exciting.
Amazing stuff gets
That like
done.
just made me really excited.
Yeah, like it's an amazing energy that happens that you can't produce by imposing
Yeah.
vision on a congregation, because it kills creativity, it kills authenticity. But when you allow people to be free and to become their fullest selves and to blossom, it becomes a beautiful garden. It really does. And it really does happen. I've seen it with my own eyes
Hmm.
locally in my last church that I pastored. And also I see it online. No vision, no mission,
Hmm.
no goal. The only thing is, this is a safe space for you to be you, and it's amazing what happens.
Is there any like initial chaos that happens at first because
No,
you're
it's not mission.
really?
It's always.
Oh, it's like it's constant. So do you think that's what maybe makes people afraid of it because we're so used to like we need like people there's comfort for some people in knowing this is how things will be, this is how I have to
Correct.
operate. Yeah.
Yeah. So you would think, like you were sitting there a moment ago, oh, this makes me so excited. That terrifies a lot of people. It scares
Mm.
people.
Mm-hmm.
I've actually had people sit down in my pastor's study across from my desk and tell me, listen, we pay you to tell us what to believe and what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of people that really want that kind of church, you
Yeah.
know.
Mm-hmm.
And but when you get people together and you encourage everyone to be free, yes, there's chaos, but that's where the creativity happens. It's creative chaos.
Right.
Yeah, people are afraid of it. Leaders are terrified of it. And justifiably so. They enact um, tools to manage people
Mm-hmm.
and to keep this congregation as peaceful as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, most leaders, that's what they resort to because the creative chaos is unpredictable. You don't know what's going to happen. And you can't go to the bank with it, you
Yeah.
know,
Mm-hmm.
and it's frightening. So try the same thing with your family, with our kids. We told our kids, listen, we always want to be in a relationship with you guys. Um, Here, the drinking age in Canada is 18. I know it's 21 in the States, but it's
Mm-hmm.
18 here. And so, but we know our kids are probably going to drink before the drinking age.
Right.
We know they might have sex before they're married. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
we know they might try marijuana and other things now, which is legal in Canada, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but so we told them, listen, no matter what's happened, if you're at a party and you've drank or whatever, you give us a call. We're not going to judge you or whatever. You know our feelings about it,
Right.
but we want to be there for you. We want to help you and all that kind of thing.
Right.
Also, do you need us to buy you some condoms or what? Like, I don't know
Mm-hmm.
how controversial this is going to be for your listeners or
Oh
whatever.
no. No, no, it's fine.
This is the way we chose to parent.
Yeah.
We want to be there for you. These are our values. We're trying to pass on down to you, but we know you're going to form your own, and we're here to support you and help you to get to be your most authentic self and to be happy
Mm-hmm.
and healthy and whole and everything. We even told our kids, listen, we have no doubt that at some point you're going to need to go to counseling and talk about your parents, and we'll pay for it. So, everything like that kind of honesty in a family,
Mm-hmm.
it's really rich.
Yeah.
And I think it does provide a really safe culture for your kids to grow up and become really healthy humans. But it's frightening. Most
Mm-hmm.
of the parents we know find it easier to establish rules.
Yeah.
And there's just a different dynamic happens there
Yeah.
and a different relationship with your kids.
We also have told our kids that we know they'll go to counseling and that anytime they tell a story about parents that they might win the story because they have a father as a pastor and a mother as a sex educator. I was like, that just like blows stuff out of the water.
Yeah, yeah,
I was
for
like,
sure.
there's going to be lots of therapy. We know this already.
Yeah,
But yeah, for sure.
that's good.
So, you spoke to this a little bit, but I just wanted to emphasize it a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of your comics involve sexuality and the themes around sexuality and orientation and different things like that. So,
Mm-hmm.
why do you believe that is important and part of the truth to highlight the way that you do in your comics?
Mm-hmm. Well, it really the root of it is my personal drive, my most passionate drive, I think, is my own personal freedom. And ever since I remember, it was seldom encouraged. It was often challenged or suppressed or rebuked or whatever. And I now live in a way that I feel very free and I'm feel like I'm my most authentic self. And at this point, and I don't have a boss. I don't have people around me that have the authority to demand things from me and so on. So my own personal freedom to be my authentic self, that's my number one thing, I think, for me.
Mm-hmm.
So as a result, that's my number one wish for others,
Is
is
to
to
feel
have
that.
the freedom to be their authentic self. If they're gay or straight or trans or asexual or polyamorous or what, I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
Just don't hurt anybody.
Right. Right.
And yeah, and be safe. And this obsession, like one of my cartoons is where a guy and a girl are sitting down at the table, and the guy says, I don't know what the problem is, but ever since I became an evangelical, I just can't stop obsessing about people's genitals. And it's really true.
It's true.
People like, I don't understand the obsession with and with this incessant need to control other people's lives and tell them how they should be, like it's this completely binary black
Yeah.
and white world,
Yeah.
uh, wrong or right, holy or evil or whatever. I don't care. Like seriously, I
Mm-hmm.
just don't care if you're gay or trans or straight or what. That's to me is, it's important, but I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't understand people who care so much about that. Like
Yeah.
I don't get it. And so that really is what it's about for me, is for everybody to have that freedom to be their authentic self. Why
Mm-hmm.
should I enjoy that and not somebody else?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I feel like the suppression so much of like the sexuality or the conversations around
Mm-hmm.
our bodies then becomes the obsession, of
Yeah.
people. And
Yeah.
it's fascinating, like you said,
Like
because
what's happening in the States now with um, banning trans people, going after their parents. Um,
it's so
don't,
upsetting.
don't say gay.
Well,
Uh,
they're not,
the abortion
there's
whole thing, Roe
there's
versus
so
Wade.
much that I can't like this whole entire sex education world is being like threatened and is
Oh
being
yeah.
and like sex educators like
Mm,
myself, we've gotten hate mail. They're
mm,
like telling us that we are groomers, which is far from the truth, right? Like I tell people one of the main reasons I went into this profession is to end the cycle around sexual molestation and
mm,
things like that, and to help educate people so that they have a good life and a better life. And like you're talking about, like it makes me really upset to see the way that I feel as a Christian, Jesus's ministry, which was reaching out to so many people that society I felt pushed away,
mm,
and just to be with and care for and include. And I feel like so much of what Christianity has become in the Western civilized culture um, has been anything but that, and has been pushing people away
mm,
and not looking at how to reduce harm and how to care and how to love.
mm,
And then the obsession, like you talked about with genitals, it's just like,
mm.
what? And now there was something where a judge signed off on saying that um, taking medication PrEP for HIV is against religious freedom.
Yeah, there was a company who wanted it removed from their health insurance policy, that any of their employees could be covered for HIV medication.
Yeah.
That it was against their religious beliefs. And the judge said, sure, okay, yep,
Yeah.
you
Which
know,
also, like at the same token, I'm like, well, anyone gets HIV. Like any person can get HIV. Like
yeah,
this is why we have these drugs available. So,
yeah. I mean, when we go on vacation, we're warned about, what kind of water you drink because of HIV. So it's weird how it's becoming so sort of the Christian Taliban.
mm-hmm, yeah.
Scary. Hmm.
Oh,
And the ignorance too. I mean,
yeah.
uh, sometimes I'll be there and I'll be catching up on Twitter on the news or whatever, and I'll just be like, oh my, I'll just shake my head. And Lisa's like, what? I said, this senator actually believes that a woman's stomach's connected to her uterus, like that something can go from her stomach to her uterus. And like they just don't, just basic female anatomy. And these are the people making laws
I know
about female
this.
anatomy. I
I
mean, well,
really want to give like a comprehensive sex education class like I do to fifth and sixth graders to people in Congress and
mhm.
say stuff like, if you learned one thing from here, then let's have a conversation of how actually important this really is and how our lives would have been different.
Yeah.
Like that's something I dream about doing, of just saying, because I also make my lessons really fun and engaging, and
Oh yeah.
we play games and things like this. So I just feel like if they could go through a class and just sit there and be like, tell me what you've learned. Like, how has your life changed just from this one moment of learning about our anatomy and what it does?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
Yeah.
so what I love also about your comics is that some of your comics are simple illustrations, like you have like with the Google Translate and things that
Right.
are like pretty powerful. Um, and it's
Mm.
like they give us the right amount of detail to hit us in the gut and just be like, yes, that's what I feel. So I multiple times looking at your comments, I go, yes. So I feel that. So what is the process for you with some of this, and where
Mm.
the stuff comes from, and
Mm-hmm.
um, how you envisioned it and things?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I started Naked Pastor as a blog back in 2005, and then like I've always been an artist, but I never drew a cartoon really. I thought I like a good cartoon. There was a cartoonist I was following at the time, and he said he tries to draw a cartoon every day. I thought, hey, I'm going to try and draw a cartoon.
Mm,
I'm going to challenge myself to draw one a day until I run out of ideas.
mm.
And I thought I might last 2 to 4 weeks. So that was 2005. Where are we now? So 17 years later, I'm still drawing cartoons almost every day.
Really?
And so yeah, I just came out with a new book, Flip It Like This,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm trying to find it here, where I've got my best of cartoons out of thousands, and it was really hard to decide which ones to include in that book. But for me, the process is the idea just kind of pops into my head. I could be running or driving my car or going for a walk in the woods with my dog or something, and the idea will just pop into my head.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I'll be thinking about spiritual abuse, or I'll be thinking about purity culture, or I'll be thinking about some stupid things some leaders are teaching in the church or whatever. And then a funny thought or a poignant thought or a sad thought will pop into my head, and then I'll think of a picture for it. So that's how it happened. It's I very I don't sit down and think, what can I draw that will really uh, be popular, or what can I draw that people will really like.
Right.
Rather, it's coming out of me and my own desire to express something.
Yeah.
And I find cartoons, when I started drawing them, more people were coming to my blog. I mean, it only takes a split second to see my cartoon.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you write 1,000-word post, that takes a couple of minutes. And so I just like the speed and the effectiveness and the punch that the cartoons deliver. And
Mm-hmm.
so I never know though from one day to the next if
Mm-hmm.
it's a good cartoon or not, um, in the eyes of the people out there.
Yeah.
So the one the other day I drew about Holy Ghosted,
Yes.
where they said that, nobody from our church has contacted us. And I said, maybe we've been holy ghosted.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, has this happened to you? And holy smokes, like over 5,000 people, come on and see that, and so many comments. But then I did one the other day. I thought it was really good. I loved it, but it didn't see 10% of the people.
Yeah.
So I never know from one day to the next. Maybe that's good
Yeah.
because
I
I
can't.
can't, milk the cow all the time or steal the
Mhm.
golden egg all the time. So
Yeah.
I just draw what inspires me, and sometimes it hits home, and sometimes it doesn't. I just
Mhm.
can't.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But that's staying true to you, right? You're just drawing what comes
that's
to
right.
you. And
Yeah,
that's the
yeah,
point. Um, so again, I like that you said the punch, right? Because that's what I believe your comics do is they give us this punch. And but they're, for me, it's always good punches. But-
yeah,
so you already mentioned, that people comment. And I know that art changes people. So do you have a story that has stood out to you of someone who has directly told you that
yeah.
your art
I
changed them?
do. Yeah, I have a ton of stories, but let me share a couple. One is really, really hit me. This happened a couple of years ago. Where are you familiar with my Sophia drawings?
I just recently, the one with like the woman who's in the wilderness.
Yes.
Hmm.
Yeah. So after I left the ministry, I started drawing this woman, Sophia, and after a while, I realized I was drawing my own um, liberation from religion and oppression and all the negative stuff about it.
Mm-hmm.
And it took a couple of years, but eventually I had 59 drawings and I wrote a reflection for each one and turned it into a book, The Liberation of Sophia. And so basically it's my story from captivity in the ministry and in the church to my freedom and
Mm-hmm.
feeling like I'm finally free.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mean religion and all that is a prison. I mean it was for me in the
Mm-hmm.
way I was living it. Um, anyway, I got an email from a young woman who said that she had enrolled in college and all this. She was making her parents happy and all that, but she was totally not happy. And so she decided to quit college. She bought a tent and a sleeping bag and bought my book, The Liberation of Sophia, and grabbed her journal and just went out into the mountains for like a couple of months
Oh,
and
wow.
read the book, wrote in her journal, and came out of the woods a different woman, like totally changed. And she
Mm.
thanked me for that book that changed her life. And stories like that I get all the time. And it's funny. The other stories all can be put under one thing, and this is what I love about them because it shows that it's working. Where when you say you're free to be your authentic self, I don't want you to follow me. I don't want you to be like me or believe what I believe. I'm not your guru. I'm not your leader. All I'm here to do is to encourage you to be your most authentic self. That's all I'm here for.
Mm-hmm.
And I hear from people that says, I finally embraced my inner atheist. And I am so happy. Thanks for your cartoons and blah, 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 and all this. And then just yesterday, I got one from somebody who said, I was raised atheist and I always hated Christianity. And I said, but I really love your Jesus.
Oh,
And she said, I found a church I really like and I'm going to church now. And says, I just want to thank you for so the
it's
wide diversity of responses, but they're all
yeah,
really the same. And
yeah,
that is I got in touch with myself
yeah.
finally.
It's
And that to me makes me happy.
finding their naked truth, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And that I just like to me, I feel like I'm still in the process myself of finding my naked truth. And
Mm-hmm.
there's a part that is very scary of that because you, I mean, I think what people experience too is that inevitability of disappointing people, and we're always taught not to disappoint people, especially in Christianity, right? Like, don't disappoint, be a
Mm-hmm.
certain way, act
Yeah.
like this. And so it comes with challenges
Mm-hmm.
and it comes with, um, letting down maybe even a sense of a dream that you might have had, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of how things might have been for your life.
Right.
And so I think sometimes stepping into that space feels daunting and overwhelming.
Yeah.
But then you also hear the stories of when people get through, right?
Hmm.
Just
Yeah.
how they feel like they can breathe.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. It's it's I've often said that if everybody around you your whole life was cheering you on to become your most authentic self, you're more likely that you would. I mean, you have to
Mm-hmm.
get over your own fears of yourself and your dark side and all the stuff you have to integrate and everything. But if everybody around you, your siblings, your parents, your aunts and uncles, your grandparents, your church, your teachers, everybody around you was like, Kara, you can do it. We're here for you. You can be you. We're going to
Mm-hmm.
support you 100%. Can you imagine you'd feel far less fear
Mm.
about being and expressing your most authentic self. So
Yeah.
that makes me conclude that probably the biggest inhibitor is fear, fear
Oh,
of rejection.
huge.
And I know for me, I love pleasing people.
Yeah. One,
And
yes.
I hate it when I disappoint people.
Yeah.
But if you want to be your most authentic self, you sort of have to embrace that double-edged kind of experience,
Mm-hmm.
where your most authentic self is going to really inspire others and infuriate others.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I feel like just the other day, like my daughter taught me this lesson, which she'll probably kill me for saying out loud, but she's someone who's more introverted than I am in things. And so sometimes I've questioned different things around what she does and where she might find happiness. And she says to me, like, Mom, I'm not like you. Like, this feels good for me. Like doing this, like being with my book for this amount of time feels good to me. And I have to constantly be like, right, okay. Because
Well,
we
yeah.
get we form, I think it's easy to form these ideas of how we want our partners to be, how we want our kids to be, what we think we need to still adhere to in this world.
Hmm.
But it's like a constantly, like I'm constantly reminding myself too to like bring that stuff down,
Yeah.
like you said, how you do with your kids. So
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, is there a,
That's,
go ahead, what?
that's great. I said, how old is your daughter?
She's 13.
Well, she's on the right track. That's
She's
great.
a wise young woman.
Mm.
Um, what was I going to say? Okay, so do you have a moment for you where you were impacted by your art in such a way that it kind of changed you?
Well, yeah, okay. So my I was talking about Sophia, and I'd left the ministry. I was in absolute chaos. I didn't know what I was going to do. I was probably depressed. And I just sat down one Sunday afternoon with a paper and pencil and pen and started drawing. And I ended up with a picture of a girl holding up a teddy bear to a big grizzly bear. And I called it Fearless. And Lisa's like, "What is that? Like, it's just so out of style for me." I'm like,
Hmm.
I just came out of me. It just felt like drawing it. And
Hmm.
next week, my wife's a nurse and she was working nights. And so um, I opened up a bottle of wine, put on some loud music, and started drawing another one. And and then another one the next week, and then another one the next week. I was about 8 in.
Hmm.
I was drawing. This one is called Cave, where she's standing before the big black mouth of a cave, deciding whether or not to go in. And I started, like, my eyes were welling up and I felt very emotional. And I realized, oh my goodness, this is me. This is
Hmm.
all me. And it was this profound light went on that I was sort of drawing out in more ways than one. I was drawing out my liberation, my
Hmm.
transition from, and it was through art. It was like therapy.
Yeah.
And, like I said, it took 2 years for the 59 drawings and all the writing. And it was profound. Like I would never sit down with a plan of what I was going to write. I would just sit down and then just start drawing, and it would just sort of like this stream of whatever
Hmm.
was. And and then the last one I drew is called Light, where she's walking out of a dark room into the light.
Mm. Mm.
And then that I stopped drawing. The inspiration stopped.
That's wild.
It was over.
What
And
what happened for you, I think, in just realizing that, like you said, with this art that you're creating was you, and that you took
mhm,
on this role of Sophia.
mhm.
How did that impact you in terms of you becoming Sophia?
Yeah, so I realized like Carl Jung, the animum, the female side of me, and I felt like that side, the caring, nurturing,
Mm,
creative, birthing, um, feminine part of me was suppressed in the church. I had to be the male patriarchal teaching guru, leader, pastor, minister,
mm-hmm.
and all that sort of the feminine nurturing side was suppressed in me. And I was therefore half a person. I wasn't my full self. And so me
Right.
drawing the Sophia pictures was me letting the Sophia in me, it's Greek for wisdom.
Wisdom.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
My own wisdom to emerge, which
Mm,
is very feminine, that feminine aspect of me. And I feel like I'm a much more whole person now,
mm-hmm.
and whole meaning healthy.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was a profound journey, and it only took a couple of years, you know, from leaving the ministry to finally shedding all of that heaviness
Mm-hmm.
and the chains and the expectations and the burdens, and finally feeling free to be myself.
Do you feel like that has changed also in the way that you enter into your relationships with your wife and children once you
Oh yeah,
came from that? Yeah.
yeah, like it's definitely a part of. um, I never realized that was all suppressed, that Sophia was in there
Mm-hmm.
until she begged to come forth, And so it's with our kids. When you provide a safe place for your kids, you really can't know what to expect.
Yeah.
True freedom is, I have no idea what she's going to be like, but I'm going to trust the process.
Mm-hmm.
That if she's given a safe, nutritious environment in which to grow, she'll become her best self.
Yeah.
And um, we saw that with our two boys and our girl. And yeah, it's like a plant, it's like an acorn or whatever. You can plant it and clear the ground. You got to clear the ground, make sure there's no pests or sticks or stones, that there's nutrients, that it gets sunlight and water and all this kind of thing. But you can't pull on the acorn. You can't crack it open. You can't, once there's a sprout, you can't pull the sprout to make it grow. You can't shape the tree unless you're a bonsai expert. But you really, all you know is there's going to be an oak tree, and you have
Mm.
no idea what it's going to look like.
Yeah.
But
That's
that's the
great.
beauty of it, and the surprise.
I feel like you actually are providing ministry to me right now. Like, I feel like this is exactly what I need to hear as a parent currently in my life. So,
Well, fasten your seatbelt and put on your helmet, because she's entering her teen years. And our kids' teen years, I'm telling you, man, it was nonstop.
oh gosh, I know. I
And
know.
I would never want to go through that again.
Oh God. I
Yeah.
know. I'm nervous.
I'm glad we did it. I'm glad we did it the way we did it.
That's good.
Yeah.
I mean, just being a sex educator, I know what happens. Like, I teach youth all the time, and I'm just like, all right, okay, just
Yeah.
get prepared, lots of rest, all this stuff, right?
Yeah. I
Everything that they
was
face.
a taxi driver. I felt like that's part of my job.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. So do you believe, um, how do I want to phrase this? How do you see how the church, big church, there's many different sects,
Right.
right? How do you see that the big church, the Christian church, and the world need to change right now? Big question. It's fine. you know.
Well, okay. I do. I'll try to make it short. So a book that had a huge influence in my life was James Fowler's Stages of Faith.
Mm,
And a lot of people kind of debunk his theory and all that kind of thing. But nevertheless, it is helpful to understand that I prefer now to think of growth, spiritual growth, as spatial, where we
sure.
kind of go outward more and more and more, and nothing is rejected, everything's included,
Mm-hmm.
including our past selves and our past beliefs and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Nothing's wasted. So unfortunately, the church is really good at fostering care until we get to about our adolescent years in our spiritual journeys, where we start to question the status quo. We
Mm-hmm.
start to question the authority figures and our teachers and everything that's passed on to us. We sort of get a little bit rebellious, and we're sort of trying to discover how to be ourselves, separate from our parents and separate from our peers and separate from our teachers. And but the church really sucks at allowing that to happen spiritually.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
believe if the church allowed us to grow beyond our adolescent stage into that very serious questioning stage, where we might even leave home for a while, we might totally reject everything our parents taught us, all their values and everything, kind of like the prodigal son. I don't know. But eventually, um, we learn how to become our truest selves and how to integrate everything about our parents and everything that we how we grew up and all that stuff, and get to the next stage, which is an integrating stage
Mm-hmm.
where we integrate everything.
Right.
And but the church doesn't let us get past that rebellious stage. It doesn't let us get into that rebellious stage
Mm-hmm.
where we question, we say to the pastor, I'm not sure I believe you. Like, how many pastors can tolerate that kind of language? So or where we reject the system, or we see problems with the way things are done and we want to see things change, or we want to spray graffiti over the beliefs of our forefathers or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
If the church could somehow figure out a way to allow that to happen in a safe way,
Mm-hmm.
in an open-handed way,
Yeah.
I think the church would get back on a track of growth again.
Yeah. Isn't what is that one particular religion that has like a year? Is it
Oh,
the
that's the Quakers, where they send you off into the world for a year
right?
to taste the world, what it's
And
like.
to
You're usually expected to come back and saying, I had enough of that, and
mm-hmm. But some don't. Yeah.
back in line, right?
Yeah. That just made me think of that.
But it's
Yeah.
just First Nations people, Indigenous people, where there's the vision trip, where you go and find your spirit animal, and
Mm.
you wait until you get a vision for your life, and then you come back to the tribe. So I wish, I'd still be in the church if the church allowed that.
Mm. Well,
That had
because it's helping not have that box that we feel like we have to fit, like you're saying. Like all of this is like the things you're saying are aligning in terms of the rowing, the being able to go outside of this box and stuff. Like we're not supposed to. Like I always say to people, you know, God and sex are the two things that should not be in a box, and we keep trying to put them in a box, and it just doesn't work.
mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
continuously doing that and continuously having the binary thinking removes us from, I
right.
think, the greatness and imagination and like wonders that we could experience,
Yeah,
together.
agreed.
Do you think that we can get there? Do you think that there's a way for
uh
us to experience what you're talking about?
Individually, yes, and individual churches, yes. I don't know about denominations or the church in general.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? It's 2022. The church has shown a miraculous ability to, you know, endure
Mm-hmm.
and even like not just survive, but thrive through the centuries and millennia. Whether that means it's one of those cockroaches that never dies, or that it really is something that has meaning for people. I think the church will always be here. I think it deserves to be. I think people should have the right to gather around common ideas and values and worship
Mm-hmm.
their God or whatever, like whatever.
Right.
Uh, and so I think the church people should be allowed that. The church, therefore, will continue to survive. My only thing is, can we please do it in a healthy manner? That's it. That's
Yeah.
all.
Without creating harm as much as we've created
Right.
harm. Yeah,
Right.
for sure.
Yeah.
So we're almost come to an end, and I always ask my guests, what story are you reframing for yourself right now?
That's a good one. For me right now, it's that I I do so much online.
Mm-hmm.
I realize that the more I'm online, that less healthy I am in every
Mm,
way, including physically.
sure.
And so for me, I mean, I can scroll on Twitter trying to keep up with the news, or I love TikTok. It's so entertaining and informative, and but I'm a better person when I'm only online for when I need to be. So
Right.
for me, just creating space for myself, getting outside, walking barefoot in the grass, walking in the woods, going for a cold swim, breathing, just being in my body and out of my head, that for me is really, really transformative, and it's working.
Mm.
Mm,
I feel the same within my own business. I feel like I've constantly had to post and things, which I'm terrible at doing anyway, because
yeah,
I get stuck in my head. So now I'm like, I'm just going to post when I feel like it, when something comes to me,
yeah,
and just be like that, because I too just need that space of creativity, of
right.
breathing room, and, you know,
Have you noticed a difference in your business?
yeah, like I'm growing more locally, which is kind of what I've wanted anyway. And also just being able, what I love social media for is connecting to people like you, like
Right,
being able to reach out and find other people who do similar things that I'm passionate about. And so I use it a lot mostly for networking um in that
right,
way.
yeah,
So yeah, but it has, like, I feel like I've been more on top of things for my own self in creating content. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Like I've discovered that um, I need a lot of space to be creative,
Mm-hmm.
and social media can invade that space. So I need to
Yeah.
be very careful, or else I'm not as creative as I normally am. So, and that's important to me being an artist and
Right.
a cartoonist. So I need to sort of preserve and defend that space
Mm-hmm.
and form a pretty clear boundary.
Yeah.
And I've got people who can help me with that. So that's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you so much. And I appreciate that you took, looked at fear, looked at that bear and held up the teddy bear, and, you
Yeah.
know, and
It's so
was
true,
able
man. Yeah.
to work through that and help others. So I
Yeah.
really
Thank
appreciate
you.
that.
Thank you.